Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1658A, and today's date is September 7th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Fed Unprepared for the Next Crisis. Translation, their system is done. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube and type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the interview. Or you can come over to x22report.com or newsentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the interview there, and you can play it right on the site. Or go to Steemit, that is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it seems like we're getting closer and closer to D-Day, where a lot of news is going to come out, a lot of things, they're going to happen, and everyone needs to be ready and prepared for this. We talked about this in many, many reports, but it looks like at this point, anything is fair game. And we know the economy has been built up on a gigantic illusion. We know that this entire system was propped up since 2008 when the entire system crashed, and they needed the ability to create currency to allow them to do what they needed to do to bring us to war to cover up for the major collapse. That's what 2008 was about. It was a process of where the central bank brought the system down so they can get the government to allow them to create currency willy-nilly. And this way, they can prop the entire world up long enough for them to get the event started so they can cover up the major collapse. Because without doing that, the entire system would have imploded right there and then. The problem right now is that their plans have been flushed down the toilet. The people that they needed in place to pull this off are not there. This is the major problem. And when we look at the major economy in the United States and globally, it is falling apart left and right. And what's very concerning is that people have saved their whole lives, have put money into pensions, they invested, and they've been kept in this illusionary world for such a long time, they don't realize what is happening right now. I mean, if we look at the pension system, for example, right now, the pensions are about $7 trillion short of the funding they need to pay out all the benefits they promised. And that doesn't include the $49 trillion in unfunded Social Security obligations. Private pensions are in bad shape too. Let's take a look at that. A total of around 1,400 corporate pensions are a combined $553 billion in the hole. Plus, 25% of those funds are expected to go broke in the next decade. But the pension problem is much, much bigger than just what's happening. Even though the U.S. problems are very severe, but if we look at the worldwide problems, well, it looks like that's even worse. In 2015, the total worldwide gap in pension funding was around $70 trillion, and this is according to the World Economic Forum. That is larger than the 20 largest economies in the world combined. So, what are they going to do about all of this? Well, one of the government's proposals is to slash retirement payments by 10%. At the same time, the government wants to increase contributions by adding more in taxes, maybe by 50%, to allow those that are going to retire enough for them to retire, just to cover them. And we'll worry about everyone else later on. This is not going to work. See, the problem is that this entire system has been built on a central bank platform where you create currency, you attach interest to it, and of course this is created out of thin air, you loan it to the government, and the government has no checks and balances. So they start programs up, they start entitlement programs. A lot of the money is siphoned off someplace else. The military gets larger, and the tax receipts that are coming into the government, they're not enough for all these programs that they started. So what do? They have to borrow more. And of course, there's interest attached to that. Who pays for all this? Well, the people that are working. And that's why they're taxed, to pay for all this debt. And this process continues on over and over and over. It's like a household that has a credit card that's making $50,000 a year. Yeah, maybe they're getting raises, maybe they're not. Maybe they're getting cost of living. But the amount that they're spending is about 10, 20, 30, 40 times than what they're bringing in. You know what's going to happen eventually. They won't be able to pay the interest on the debt. They have to go bankrupt. That's what's happening in this country right now. This central banking system doesn't last forever. Just like borrowing on your credit card with an income about $50,000. Think about it, if your wage goes down and your employer says, listen, instead of $50,000, you're going to be making $45,000 now, or they keep it at $50,000, but everything else is getting more expensive, you know what happens. You go into bankruptcy. There's nothing else. You try to get another job, but then you spend more money. Everything continually gets more expensive. You can't keep up. That's what's happening right now. Now, what's very interesting is that we know that the Fed, they want to raise rates. And I do believe that Powell and Trump, he put Powell into position on purpose. And he knew that Powell was going to raise rates. And of course, he made the comment that he thought he was going to be an easy money type of Fed. But he knew that to destroy the economy, the rates have to move up. Now, what's very interesting is the corporate media is out there, and they always defend the Fed because, they're working hand in hand with the Fed. This is part of the deep state funding. What they're doing right now is they're putting out articles, and they're saying that, listen, the yield curve is suggesting that we're heading towards a recession. And now is the time for the Fed to stabilize interest rates. There's no need to raise them anymore. Now, this is very interesting. They're out there telling the Fed, listen, don't raise the rates anymore because it's going to hurt the economy. Because they know what's happening here. They know if the Fed, and we talked about this yesterday, if they raise it 2 more times and it gets very close to 3%, the economy will implode on itself. Now, the Fed has come out and they have said that they are not prepared for the next crisis. The Fed said to be more unprepared for a crisis than 10 years ago. And what does that tell you? That tells you that their system is done for because they have no way out of this. They knew this from the beginning when they started to create the funds back in 2008 when they manufactured the collapse of the system, and they had the government pass laws where all of a sudden they were able to do things that they've never were able to do before. Now, a group of current and former policymakers and academics in the financial industry that comprise of the Group of 30, a financial industry working group that includes names like Mario Draghi, Mark Carney, and many others, the who's who of who, these individuals are saying, listen, we're not prepared for this next crisis. If there is a crisis, which there will be, we won't be able to do anything. The Fed is going to be in a worse position. They're in worse shape to fight the next major crisis than they were in 2008. Now, we all knew this. We knew that what they were planning on was to have an event, have something large where they were going to cover all of this up. So we can see right now, at this point, what is happening. Right now, Trump is maneuvering to control the narrative. Not just Trump, but all those people that have been working with him. And he has 2 narratives right now. One, if the Fed does raise the rates, which most likely they're going to do, the system will implode. If news is released and the economy goes by the wayside, guess what? Well, the news took it down. The economy was doing well. It's because of what these individuals have done over time, and we found out. And the people are not happy with this. So right now, he does have the ability to control the narrative and bring this system into a completely different area. And this is what we're seeing play out right now. And within the next couple of days, we're going to see the first part of the narrative most likely come out. We'll have to see what comes out, how it affects the economy. I don't think it's going to be everything, but eventually what's going to happen, people are going to start to wonder. They're going to scratch their heads. They're going to think to themselves, what's going on here? And all of a sudden, you're going to see the mainstream media scrambling to explain why all of a sudden this news is out there, first of all. Second of all, they're going to try to spin why the economy is failing. And of course, Trump is going to come out and counter their argument. And the mainstream media is going to have a very difficult time because all these individuals that they've been standing up for, well, now they're being dragged in to stand trial. And we can see that once more information comes out, everything will start to fall apart. And this is the part where everyone needs to be ready and prepared for, because once everything starts to fall apart, it's going to be like a domino effect. It's going to hit one economic sector after another, and nobody will be able to stop this. And we will see a system crash right in front of our eyes. We'll see the stock market come down. We'll see layoffs. It will be like 1929, but on steroids. Because back then, people didn't know what to do. And everything didn't improve right away. This time around, it's going to be just like that, but a lot worse. And we're going to be moving to a completely different system. So we can see that you're going to need to be prepared for this, because we don't know how long it will be, how long it will take for them to reset and bring us to a new system. We're going to go through bumps. It's going to be difficult in the beginning, and people are going to be angry. We might see riots. We might see people running to the supermarkets. You ever been in an area where there's a hurricane that's approaching? You know that people run to the gas stations. Lines are like down the streets. You go into the supermarket, the shelves are completely empty, and the storm's not even here. It's a sunny day. They know what's coming. If people get wind of this and the market goes down and things start to really fall apart, the first thing people are going to think, okay, first I want to get my money. Second, let's run and take that money and buy as much as we possibly can, because it's all falling apart. And then they're going to hear from others where they're running to the market, they're running to the banks, and you know what's going to happen. The banks eventually will close down. And the markets, they will run out of food. Then there will be a credit freeze. Then people will be screaming and yelling, saying, what is going on here? The market will fall even further. People will try to sell to get out of it. People will look for a safe place to put their cash, even though the cash is devaluing very, very quickly. They might even say, hey, I'm going to go out and purchase gold or silver. A lot of people might even throw it into paper, which is not a good thing. If people run and put their funds into physical silver or gold, well, that's going to be gobbled up in no time. And we're going to see those prices move up very, very quickly. People might even purchase land if they can, but I think in a short period of time, that's not really viable. So we can see that a lot of things are going to happen, and it's going to happen very quickly. So you need to be ready and prepared for everything and anything. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.